Good day and welcome to another episode of White and Woke at Work. I'm Janelle Benjamin and I'm here today with my guest, Evan Birkhead. Evan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Janelle. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you. I'm so happy that you're on. You have just got a fury of comments and likes and posts on your new anti-racism article, I Was Racist, but then I wasn't. Tell us a little bit about that.
First, I have to play my walk-on music.
Oh, you've got walk-on music, okay.
Yeah, because we're gonna start a new trend for walk-on music for LinkedIn. And we're gonna have a hashtag and everything. And then I can you hear it?
I can hear it. No, I don't hear it anymore.
You recognize it?
Yes, I remember. Good song,
Earth,
good
Wind, and
choice.
Fire. 1977 and reminds me of high school. And we had a very diverse high school. I grew William Nottingham High School in Syracuse, go Bulldogs. Syracuse, New York. We had a very diverse city, and we were really into music. And 70s funk was the thing at the time, and that was one of our prom songs. You know, that was like one of the big songs at the time. And so that reminds me, I feel like songs like that should be the soundtrack to the essays that I'm writing on LinkedIn about. It's all about the 70s and how a bunch of white kids hung out with black kids. We went to school with them and became woke.
Just because you went to school with them, you got woke. Like, or what were they teaching you that made you guys get woke?
So there was an elementary school that had just been recently named Dr. M.L. King School in Syracuse. It was all black school in the inner city. And after third grade ended, they asked a bunch of the white kids from the outskirts of the city, from the suburbs, if we wanted to take this opportunity to go to a new educational program in inner city Syracuse. And what they were really doing was integrating Dr. King School. And so my parents, being really cool, said, in third grade, they're like, it's up to you if you want to go. And I'm like, of course I want to go. Like, this is anything to change this up will be great. And most of the essays I'm writing for LinkedIn are informed by 4th, 5th, 6th grade. I feel like at a very young age, we learned why the world needed to be integrated and why black people and white people needed to understand each other. And we just saw it and lived it. And we went to school with these kids, and it was rocky at first, and it ended up fine. It was fine. And it was a great program. We made friends for life out of it. And I grew up thinking, everybody knows what I know. Everybody had this experience. And then here we are, like 40, 50 years later, and it's like all of that has been swept under the carpet, and it didn't even happen, and we didn't even make this progress. We're like right back to where we started.
So let's talk about, Evan, like the practical application or implications of integrating the school system in the United States at that time. Like, you're a child, and I mean, what you just said and the way you positioned it, and I'm certain it wasn't positioned that way. Like, it's not an opportunity for white kids to go to this great new inner city school named after Dr. King, right? Like, what's white people's perceptions of Dr. King at this time? What's their perceptions of, like, you know, that black school over there, and, you know, the educational outcomes that their children will have if they go to that school? Like, let's contextualize that for a little bit.
So we're a year or two after the assassination of Dr. King.
Okay.
And he was a divisive figure, but in my household, in our community, he was a leader. He was a leading figure.
Why was
And
that? What was so special about your household that made Dr. King a leader?
my parents were very progressive. My dad was a university professor. He taught government at Syracuse University. My mom was actually one of his students, and she had very progressive social outlook based on how she grew up, and they just raised us to make choices for ourselves. And I saw what I saw, and I saw what I saw through the lens of Martin Luther King Jr. School. And parents reacted, to answer your question, parents reacted differently. Some parents were like, hey, send my kids down there. Some parents were like, yeah, sounds like a great program. We'll get to know Black kids at an early age and integrate, and this is the way of the future. My parents were like, you should go if you want to go. I was dying to go. It turned out to be great move.
How old were you when you're old enough to make a decision that you really want to go?
So it was just before 4th grade. So I think I went to King School for ages 9, 10, 11.
And you already know at age 9 that you really want to go to an interracial school, or whatever they were terming it at the time.
I guess integrated.
Integrated, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And why? What did you feel that made you know that you wanted to attend?
Well, we had just come back from living in Pakistan for 2 years.
Okay.
So I was hyper aware that there's this other world out there outside of the United States. And the US with racism seemed like a thing of the past. Seemed like we were past that, and that our generation is the one that was going to live this life racism free. And when this opportunity came up, I'm like, yeah, I'm the first generation that's free and clear of that, and I'm going to be one of the people that proves it. And growing up being in Pakistan at a young age, it's a Muslim country, huge country, millions of people. At the time, I don't know if this is the case now, at the time it was very many poor people living below the poverty line. And so we saw a lot of disease, people coming up to our car and asking for money. And I'm very young. I'm at that impressionable age where I'm just aware of we're on planet Earth.
Right.
And I'm seeing these things, and I'm seeing these poor people, and I'm seeing how life is different for us Americans coming over there, spending a couple years with them. And so I think after that, going to Martin Luther King Jr. School was like a next logical step.
So, I mean, you've got parents that are already worldly, right? Like, why are you living in Pakistan?
So my dad with Syracuse University got a grant from the Ford Foundation to work with the Pakistani government to train civil servants to run a democracy at the time. Remember, this is the late 60s.
Right.
And so he went over with a group of other professors from Syracuse and other places and some public officials, and they trained civil servants at a staff college there, and taught them about government. And that was my dad's thing, was democracy, teaching government and teaching. The school at Syracuse is called the Maxwell School of Citizenship and Public Affairs. And he eventually became dean there for about 20 years. From 1977 to 88, for about 11 years.
Wow.
That's what he taught, and that's what he was about.
So you're back from Pakistan. You've already seen lots of brown kids and Black kids, and you come back to the United States, and I guess, is it familiar for you and comfortable for you to be around people who were different than yourselves, and that's what made it easier to get into this new integrated school?
Yeah. I don't remember not being comfortable around non-white people. That's how young I was at the time.
So you get
And
to the school and is it just easy? You're just playing and you're interacting and you're not really,
no,
are you not noticing the differences, or there's differences and you're okay with it?
yeah, no, it wasn't like that at all. In fact, it was very awkward, especially the first year. Black kids had their school, and here's all these white kids coming in wearing nice clothes and stuff. It was probably pretty surreal, the whole thing, and nobody's really monitoring the situation or or making sure that people are acting the right way. It's like we were thrown into the deep end of the pool, and you guys figure it out.
So what is your educational system like? Are there textbooks for everyone? And like you've already mentioned disparities in terms of how people are looking and dressing, but are there other obvious disparities in terms of the curriculum and the delivery of the education? Like, are kids
Yeah,
coming to school hungry? Are kids, you know, all the
yeah,
things you might expect from the inner city?
yeah. They're coming in without lunch money. Syracuse is a snowy climate, and they don't have proper winter jackets, and they haven't had the same schooling to date. So there was just disparity there. There was a disparity in culture,
Mhm.
but that was the easy part, I think. Like we got there, we're used to playing duck duck goose on the playground at our school, and we get there, and it was the year of James Brown's Sex Machine
Yeah.
and Michael Jackson and Stevie Wonder, and they're playing this and dancing in the halls. And I know all the words to Sex Machine after like the first week of fourth grade, and like some of the moves. So
Right.
there's it's immediately you're thrown into the deep end culturally.
Mhm.
It was uncomfortable. There was a lot of conflict because of this situation we were in, but it felt like over the course of fourth, fifth, sixth grade, we worked through it. The educational program they pitched that we went down there for fourth grade kind of evaporated after a year or so, and fifth and sixth grade were just completely integrated classes with kids from all the neighborhoods thrown together, and that was actually better. That's when you got to know each other. You eventually became friends.
What was it like the first year? It wasn't the same?
First where you would change classes every
Sorry, say
period,
say that again,
and
Evan.
so I
It,
think
it
the
broke
white
a
kids
little bit.
ended up all.
Say that again. It just the connection
So,
just chopped up a little.
so fourth grade was we would change classes like junior high and go to
Okay,
different periods. We would take different subjects.
great.
I think the white kids all chose the same subjects, and so we ended up kind of going to classes with white kids, and the black kids ended up going to classes with black kids. Fifth and sixth grade, they resolved that, and we were all in the same classroom together, and playground together, gym together, music together, everything.
So there was a concerted effort, clearly, by the administration to truly integrate the school, and not just on the surface level. So I guess you were part of a really, really big civil rights movement back then and now again. So how do you feel like this current movement, this current civil rights movement, is a lot different than the last one?
Well, so even when we went to school, that was 10 years after Ruby integrated in the South.
Hmm.
And so I don't think our experience was, nobody had as bad experience as she did, I'm sure.
Right.
Uh, it was better then. What's different now is there's a climate coming from the top that seems to endorse things like segregation and separate cultures. And that's when I discovered all the DEI influencers on LinkedIn, and the DEI influencers on LinkedIn preaching what I grew up living and breathing, is that we're stronger together. Diversity is strength,
Right.
and I feel like there's forces at a higher level now that are pulling that apart. And I didn't feel that back then. I
Who
thought
was the president of the United States when you were integrating the school system?
Nixon.
Was it? I don't know. We're not going to go there with the politics. I'm sure it's debatable of whether or not that leadership was better or different than our current one.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, LBJ was probably the big influence on things happening like integrating Dr. King's school.
Mm. So we're at the current movement for social justice. You're seeing the LinkedIn influencers, and what are your thoughts, and what are you doing? What are you feeling? And are you considering yourself woke?
So yeah, I feel like how did we get to a place where people have to be woke? Like why isn't everybody woke by now? That
Right.
drives me crazy. Like why is it even a thing that we have to do a show like this? It seems like, wow, I thought we were way past this.
Mm-hmm. So are you doing things in your personal life? I mean, or your professional life? You are a communications and marketing guy in your profession. So and you've got diverse partners, I believe. And so what are you doing in your personal and your professional life to really advance the movement this time around?
Well, I've always been very focused on building diverse teams and emphasizing diversity, but I feel like I've been very quiet about it. And I don't think people may observe it, but it doesn't make a dent. It doesn't do a difference.
Right.
So what I decided right around the time of George Floyd, and I was picking up all the LinkedIn news feeds from DEI influencers, you know, Aisha Joseph and Madison Butler and you and Elizabeth Leba, and they were in pain, and I knew where they were coming from and why they felt this way, and I immediately would respond and cheerlead and support on LinkedIn, and I didn't understand why everybody isn't. Like,
why is it easy for you to do that?
I have no risk. Maybe I wouldn't have done it 20, 30 years ago because I would have felt some risk to my career.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel that at all now. I'm
Right.
fortunate that I'm working for all my people are friends, but I'd like to think that if this had all come around the same way, that I would still want to get my voice out there. I felt like, if nothing else, I can at least tell why, as a white guy who went through what I went through, why I feel the way I feel,
Right.
and at least to get that out there, if nothing else. And I have nothing to gain out of it. I don't want clients for DEI. In fact, I put hashtag DEI in tech on my LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
And after people read the essay, I think they thought I was a DEI professional. And I'm like, I gotta, there needs to be a hashtag to clarify I'm an advocate. I'm not a professional. I'm a support person.
Hashtag ally.
Yeah.
Hashtag accomplice. Hashtag solidarity. I'm seeing a lot of those, right? Like a lot of the guests that we've profiled through this series, people like yourself, they're reluctant. They don't know what to say. They don't know what to call themselves. They know they want to participate. So you're not alone in that. And it's kind of endearing that you guys, you want to use your voice, but you don't want to say the wrong things. And you do want to amplify Black voices and Black careers and lend that support.
Yeah, I don't want to draw attention to myself. This is not about me. But I'm thinking, if I can explain why I believe what I believe, and somebody reads it and it makes a dent somewhere, then it's worth it. And
So
it was very cathartic to put all that on paper. I wrote the day after Thanksgiving. I wrote 12 hours and wrote like 7,000 words, and I just got it all out, and it was all in my head all those years, and I just tried to lay it out like okay, am I woke? Why am I woke? Why do we gotta be woke still? But
You've got
that's,
a 7-piece series.
I already wrote it. I wrote it that day.
Unbelievable. So we've seen part 1. What's to come?
So I'm going to write a lot about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Elementary School.
Mm-hmm.
I'll write about Pakistan. I'm going to write about my parents and their families, and why, how that influenced me, and then I'm going to wrap it up just by saying this isn't about me. This is about everybody. You shouldn't have to have the experience or the upbringing I had to feel this way. Maybe that's easy for me to say because I'm the one that had the upbringing, but this is, it's so obvious to me, like how we should be living and how the world should be integrated and what value different people bring. And I just can't believe there's still people that don't get that. That drives me crazy.
But you're pretty well traveled too, Evan. I mean, does that play a part in this? You know, that you're culturally, you've experienced a lot of cultures, and you're accepting of different cultures because of that.
Yes, absolutely. And one of the entries will be about how my parents took us all over the world. We went around the world twice on both trips to Pakistan. One time we went west to east, and the other time we went east to west. And I'd been to 20 countries by the time I was in college. And since then, I've kind of continued that. And my wife shares the same sense of adventure in different cultures. And so it's just interesting to me. We're on this planet. Like, let's see as much of it as we can and find out as much. It's fascinating how people grow up differently and different cultures emerge. And it's fascinating what's in common.
Yes.
In all the cultures, you know, the music, everybody invented wine and beer. Like there's so much in common too.
So what is the United States? I shouldn't just blame the United States. There's a lot of this happening across North America, but you know, what are they fundamentally getting wrong? Because you go to other places in the world that are, you know, largely homogenous, right? One group of people, or if there's diversity within a country, they don't have the type of racial tensions that exist in the United States. So what is going on here that you haven't seen globally?
I'm not so sure it's not a problem globally. I work with a lot of European companies and Asian companies, and it's certainly, there's similar things going on in Europe.
Yes, within countries, but I mean, where you have like one country, right? Normally, the people can unify around, you know, common goals, common values. We are one people, right? Like you've got the French prime minister saying, you know, we're all French here, and there's, you know, right? That trumps everything else.
Yep.
There is a quality, a characteristic to being American, right? You guys are positioning yourself as the superpower and this great world leader. You know, people of all races and ethnicities can identify as American and feel proud to say that all around the world. But still, there's something at the core that is being missed in terms of just truly being inclusive. Like, I think somebody like yourself who's traveled so much has a lot to say about being inclusive, and what does that actually look like?
So looking back, I feel like we may have gone off the rails a long time ago. And
you're breaking up.
Pretended
Say
we
that again.
hadn't,
Just totally
kept,
broke up.
So looking back,
mm-hmm.
looking back historically, I feel like we might have gone off the rails a long time ago,
Mm-hmm.
and we ignored it, and we were pretending it wasn't happening, and now we're just completely off the track. And I think a lot of it has to do, I'm in the corporate world, and I see pay disparity, what CEOs make and what executive level and board level people make. versus what they pay their people. And I think a lot of problems come from that kind of class division. And now you have a 0.1% above a 1% of a wealthy class that's dominating everything and influencing laws and lobbying and a lot of them have taken us in the wrong direction. It's like capitalism gone crazy.
Yeah.
I'm
So
not an expert on this. I'm just speaking.
no, I mean, but you're
From my basement.
you're someone who, you know, through this series, I don't think we've had anybody else who has lived through two civil rights movements in the United States. You know, we haven't had anyone who has traveled the world nearly as much as you have. So I really do think you have a really important voice to lend to this conversation and a lot to teach people about being anti-racist. So what would you, I mean, if you had to advise someone on, you know, a 3-step program to becoming anti-racist, what would you say those 3 things are?
Okay, I don't know if I can do.
Oh, you're breaking up, Evan.
Open yourself up.
Open yourself up. I heard the first one.
Okay, I don't know if I can do 3. So open yourself up to other cultures,
Okay.
and have uncomfortable conversations with people, because racism is a white person problem. It's not a problem of other races. Race is a social construct. We invented the concept of race. White people have to get past it. So I just encourage people to become interested, learn about other cultures, learn about other people, find out what you have in common, and talk to people. And it's not confrontational. We're all on the same team. Be open.
That is phenomenal advice. And do you find that people are like, what type of conversations are you having with people when you're traveling around? I mean, are you having these uncomfortable conversations about race? Is race even a discussion, a topic of discussion, or is it just, you know, not a thing?
Race is not a topic of discussion. It would be interesting to know about 2020, because 2020 we've all been home the whole year.
Right.
And so I think if we spent more time with each other that wasn't just working on Zoom, we might have had more of those conversations. But yeah, the answer to your question is no, we don't really talk about race.
Yeah.
Every once in a while you're in a room with white people and somebody gives like a winking nod, like, yeah, well, or like this white supremacist vibe. It happens.
Yeah.
And I'm in a place now where I'm like, no, not today.
Is that at home, or is that like, where are you hearing that kind of white supremacist stuff?
I mean, in the corporate boardroom.
Yeah. It's interesting that
tech is a white industry, and anything I can do to encourage people to diversify tech that's why I'm here.
So you're hearing these types of, I guess, white supremacist things in the corporate world. And what are you doing? Are you a fly on the wall? Are you able to intervene and say, excuse me, no? Like,
no, I'm a fly on the wall. Yeah, I'm a behind the scenes person. I'm not one of the corporate board guys.
So, but how do we disrupt those types of conversations and then?
Gotta step up. People like me gotta step up.
It's easier said than done, though. So how do we get people who might be introverted or shy, or just, you know, they don't like confrontation, to do the right thing, which is to intervene in those moments? What do you think?
This is why I love the conversation, the DEI conversation going on LinkedIn, because at the root, that's what it's about. Like, they're calling out corporate companies for having a policy that sounds like diversity, equity, and inclusion, but then in practice they get exposed for not actually living up to it. And that's what Aisha Joseph does. That kind of energy to me is really valuable because she does the research on who is living up. Everybody can say it, but she's making people stand up to it. And I think that's really important right now.
Yeah, she's certainly a powerful voice. But I think there's a lot of powerful voices through the platform as well. And I think a lot of the white voices that I've certainly showcased through this series, like yourself, have a lot to contribute. I mean, you definitely have a lot to say when you write a piece that's seven parts long, right?
That was in me.
So. And I'm sure there's a lot more in you, Evan. So what's next? You're going to release this series. What are you hoping to gain from it, or what are you hoping others gain from it?
Yeah, I'm not hoping to gain anything.
Right.
I'm surprised by the comments. Some people think I'm trying to make money some way or promote myself, and it's not that at all. I'd be much happier in a world where I didn't have to go out and say these things, but I just saw a problem that needed to be addressed, and I felt maybe a voice like mine would make a difference. So if it gets amplified and I can keep it positive and constructive, then the whole thing will have been worthwhile.
I think you definitely have a lot to say and contribute to the space, and I think it certainly is worthwhile. It was worthwhile meeting with you today and having this conversation, and I would encourage everyone to go to Evan Birkhead's page. That's Birkhead on LinkedIn. Check him out. Check out his article. It is really something. And tune in for the rest of the pieces, right? There's so many more to come. So thank you so much, Evan, for coming on and sharing your story with us, your journey. I can't even call it a journey to interview because it's been part of who you are all along. And I hope that the lessons you shared with us today, everybody can kind of get there and accept that culture is such an important thing that we all need to embrace and know and just be open to learning. So thank you so much for sharing that with us all today. And we'll see you guys next time for another episode of White and Woke at Work. I'm Janelle Benjamin, and don't forget to like and subscribe and comment below. Thank you so much again. Come anytime, Evan.